everything went wrong. Basically, we were stuck. We didn't know what was going on. And things just got worse and worse and worse. There were some clear signs. We need help.
Is it a trap?
His pediatrician just happened to drop the term. I read everything I could, looked on every website I could. There was just this absence of dads. There's got to be some dads out there somewhere that the conversation tended to be directed towards the mother. It's partly a confusion with opposition defiant disorder. I want to do it, but my legs don't work. I can't walk. He will make eye contact. We know that's not a universal aspect of autism, but all these terms feel wrong and they feel judgy, but I don't know how else to articulate it. He needs the support he needs. Not leaving the house. He's not coping with school. There's some serious stuff going on here, massive demands in the education system, right from the whole idea of going to school. No, he didn't qualify for AUS, barely met criteria. A lot of time describing limitations of your kid. Make sure you highlight all the limitations, and it's like, why are we not focusing on how to support those? Extreme responses to and fixation on, I need that ice cream. I need that ice cream. It will wind up into, I want. Tenacity is more about a conscious choice, but routine is good until it's not. Significant fight. He was exhausted. I was exhausted. You can't yell at him. You can try and restrain him, but I can't do that anymore. And it was destroying me. Enough's enough. It's hard. You've just got to let go when you're lying next to me or when I'm hanging out with you. Your breath doesn't smell too good. I don't really enjoy that. You don't say that to another adult. As an adult, right, there's lots of demands. Paying bills, doing everything like that. Sometimes I will just go to the supermarket to buy something I don't need. I realised it was about 2 weeks and I thought to myself, I've not left the house. I was quite surprised I made it into this. One foot in front of the other, minute by minute, really. The water's boiling, you're like, oh, is it? There is a sense of loneliness. School can't is a term that gets used a lot. Most of the support actually came from the kids. I'll never forget one of the kids said, look, I don't like wearing earmuffs, but if it helps him feel okay, I'll do it. Kids are generally good if they can be. Because if a kid is being naughty, there's a reason. I keep having those panic attacks about, oh my goodness, he's not learned in ages. You might not be able to do X, Y, and Z, but you can do A and B. Take the label away, they're the same person.
Hey, before we jump in, I've got a quick favor to ask. If you're enjoying the show, please hit that follow or subscribe button. It really helps the channel get noticed so more people who are into the same stuff can find us. Plus, it will make me happy and inspired to bring in more guests who are great at what they do. Thanks a lot. I just want a different name that hits me or that connects.
Yep.
And then I learned about Takewatang as
yeah, it's great. Hey?
It's a great terminology. Yeah. When he's the one who coined it. When he coined it and I was reading it, this is a great terminology. I decided maybe I should just use Takewatang as my name.
Yeah.
Or the podcast name. Because I was able to connect to the word anyway. Even though it's the first time I've heard about it. But the meaning that he gave to it just makes sense.
There's a te reo Māori word for ADHD. His mind goes to many places and you're like, that's so much better than a deficit.
That's a different,
so much nicer.
So much. I contacted Kerry Opai. He's the one who coined it. We went to Waikato.
Oh, wow.
And then did a podcast. He was my earliest interviews. He was one of my earliest interviews. And then how he coined Takewatanga and so on and so forth. And then he agreed that, okay, you can just use it. I mean, he wanted everyone to use it.
Yep.
Basically. No one owns the word apart from him, but he said, it's yours.
Yep. Yeah, it's just that respect, eh?
Yeah. And since he gave me the go signal, okay, use it, then here we are.
Nice. Well done.
Yeah. So, and then some hiccups along the way. I stop, I pause, maybe sometimes I'm doubting myself, why am I doing this thing, like I'm not even a doctor, should I really do this?
Absolutely should. Yep.
And then I was talking maybe we should, and then maybe I shouldn't. That's why sometimes there's a big gap in terms of guesting and then overwhelming. Anyway, that's the short story. Thank you for coming. I appreciate your time. And
not a problem.
Really, I will just open my guide. And from time to time, I will be looking at my watch, not because I want to leave, but I'm just conscious someone might just be coming in and then kicking us out from the room. So at least we can wrap up.
properly. We were kicked out before. There was a guest that I had before, and then we were kicked out like 1 hour after, kind of like, you need to leave, blah, blah. And then, okay. Maybe it's a good start for us. It's the first time that I have a father guest.
Okay.
Usually it's parents, moms, and that, which is, I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
I had a male a couple of autistic guests as well, male. And then, yeah, no dads. Like, where are the dads? I'm the only one here. Where am I? Kind of like, where's my tribe?
Yeah. That rings.
I feel like there are strategies that these dads are doing that I need to know. I want to know them. Like,
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, before we deep dive into that, who is Iain? Is it Iain?
It is Iain. Yes.
Okay, the spelling, like.
Yeah. It's a Scottish spelling.
Okay, maybe you can introduce yourself.
Kia ora. So Iain Girvan. I live in Upper Hutt in Wellington. I'm a father of 5 kids. My youngest is diagnosed with autism and pathological demand avoidance profile, ADHD, and some sensory processing challenges, I guess. He's 10 and a half. And yeah, so that's who I am. Grew up in Hawke's Bay, moved to Wellington for Dunedin for uni and back to Wellington. So that's my bit of my history. In terms of how I got here, I don't really know. I've sort of fallen into it, to be fair.
Is it a trap? Like,
yeah, it's been really interesting. Like my son's mother, we're separated now, but when he was about 2, he's the youngest of 5, and we were very certain that he was autistic. Looking back on it, he'd spent time at kindy hiding underneath shelves and making little cubby holes, and his play was essentially just lining up cars and things, in lines and in colours and stuff. And we couldn't leave him at kindy unless he was swinging, and there were some clear signs.
What age?
That was probably 2 or 3. It was kindy, so it was 3-ish, but there was, there were signs before that. And so we started to talk to the kindy and saying, hey, look, we're pretty sure he's autistic, or at least, he's on the spectrum. And it was really hard. Like we didn't get a lot of sort of positive engagement, oh, he's fine. He's just playing quietly in the corner. He's just happy. We got a diagnosis. He was about 5, I think, which is, quite a normal age. And everything went wrong, basically. We tried all the strategies that we were given. We were given, sticker charts and all this sort of stuff. And things just got worse and worse and worse. And then he was about 7-ish, I think, and his paediatrician just happened to drop the term pathological demand avoidance.
Did they do a test before that, or just?
No, he'd been through CAMS, he'd been through a lot of different, I forget exactly what he'd been through, but he'd been through a lot of different child development, assessments and various other things. And none of the typical, quotation marks, autistic interventions were working. In fact, they seemed to be making things worse. So she happened to mention PDA, and it was a light bulb moment. Personally, I think for me was the start of this journey, and I dived deep. I read everything I could, looked on every website I could, and just absorbed as much information as possible. Just everything I read was another aha moment in terms of, okay, this is different. This is a sort of a unique aspect of autism. And so the more I delved and the more I looked into stuff and the more I tried to talk to people, as you said, there was just this absence of dads. There was nothing, and I started to notice that even at specialist appointments and things like that, the conversation tended to be directed towards the mother. The support groups were tended to be mothers, and so I thought, well, there's got to be some dads out there somewhere that are interested. So I started a Facebook group for dads of kids with PDA profile of autism. It's growing slowly. Joined a couple of local dads groups, and just sort of it's kind of gone, step by step, and now I'm doing a podcast. It's crazy.
In terms of the PDA, what's the difference of that with autism? Is it a manifestation of autism?
The general thought is that, or the terminology essentially is a profile of autism. It's, and I'm no expert on this, so apologies to anyone who's listening if I get anything wrong on this stuff. It's still very much a learning curve for me. But it's essentially a anxiety-driven response to the need for autism and self-direction. Sorry, not autism, autonomy, and choice and those sorts of things. Kids with PDA also, they don't see hierarchies.
When you say hierarchy, there's no parent.
There's no parent, there's no child, there's no teacher, there's no child, there's no, everyone is basically equal, and respect is earned, not given on the basis of, so it's not a lack of respect, it's just simply they just don't see, the line of do it because I'm the parent. It just does not land well, because so what, you're the parent, who cares,
Yeah.
So it's, I guess a profile.
I remember my son, my eldest, not the youngest, my eldest son, sometimes I was asking him to do something, let's say a chore. He's not gonna do anything unless you give him a reason why he has to do the chore. Is it something? Is that?
That is the information, and the reasoning is very important to these kids, but it's pathological in the sense that, and lots of people prefer pervasive drive for autonomy as a term. Pathological demand for autonomy. Sorry, I don't know why I keep saying that. As a clinical term that was coined by the psychiatrist who sort of started to discover is not the right word, but
From here?
outside. So it was back in, I believe, the 1980s-ish.
It's a long time.
Long time. It's still not in the DSM. It's still not recognised in the US. It's officially New Zealand, Australia, and the UK have some recognition, but nothing formal. But I think the key, and most kids will say, I don't want to do a chore. They won't do it. They'll want to either know why, or they'll want to, reward, or they'll want to, they'll be reluctant to do it. The distinction with PDA is that it is any demand, and it is a strong reaction to any demand, and this includes doing their teeth, washing their hair, even self-imposed demands like I really want to do this, but I feel it's a demand, and therefore I can't. And so there's that cognitive dissonance there, to the point where even praising the kids and saying, hey, you did really, really well, sets up an internal demand that next time I need to achieve as well as that, and then you get that anxiety loop around those sorts of things. So it is pervasive. It's every part of their day. Demand to get out of bed, the demand to have breakfast, the demand to do anything. All the things that we sort of go, oh, better do that, is takes away the autonomy.
How first, I think, in my view, I don't know if my kids or my son will has that. So how will I be able to know about what signs should I be, or traits maybe?
It's really interesting. I've talked to a lot of people about their journeys, and it seems pretty small, but a lot of the conversations I've had, I've thrown out a term that my son used to use all the time, and it seems to be quite common. Definitely not a diagnosis tool, but things like my legs don't work. I want to do it, but my legs don't work, and literally the legs won't work. They'll say, I can't walk, and they won't be able to. And it's avoidance. All these terms feel wrong and they feel judgy, but I don't know how else to articulate it.
It's not like they're making excuses.
No, they're not. They're not making excuses. They literally can't do it, but they will use some very advanced sort of social
Reasoning.
Yeah. So there's quite often the very, very articulate, very smart kids. My son, he will make eye contact. We know that's not a universal aspect of autism, but
You can't now you can't tell, because someone could probably be looking at you, but inside their head they're kind of burning. They want to look away, but no, I need to be, what you call that, be polite.
Yeah. But no, he will, like my son, and you met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person, but he will engage socially. It takes a lot out of him. It really does, but he loves it. He seeks it, particularly online, rather than with people in a space. But so that throwaway comment that I made to a few people about who were wondering, maybe my child has PDA, and I said, well, have they ever sort of said, my legs don't work, or I can't do that, I'm a dog, or I'm a whatever? Because very strong imaginative aspect to their characters. And I have yet to meet somebody who said, no, my kid's never done that. So
Everyone you meet, they are kind of the same.
Yeah. Obviously, they are all different, but there are some common
Similarities.
There's some similarities, yeah.
How do you distinguish that it is an autistic kind of behavior versus a PDA, or maybe now ADHD? The reason why I'm asking is I saw an article somewhere, I forgot, I should have bookmarked them. Some of the traits in ADHD are somewhat similar with autism.
Yeah.
Kind of, there's a lot of overlapping there. So for you, given that in your circumstance, how do you kind of identify that this is a PDA trait, this is a autism trait, or ADHD perhaps?
I don't worry about it. For me, the diagnosis was helpful because it gave a place to start understanding, and it gave access to some resources. But whether, the PDA comes along with the autism, it's a profile of autism. There is some debate about that, but generally the consensus is that it's, to have PDA, you are also autistic. It's a type, and the ADHD and the sensory processing stuff. It's all part and parcel of who he is, and so I've never really looked to try and identify
Which is which.
which is which. At the end of the day, he needs the support he needs, and doesn't really matter what's causing that. So yeah.
How were you able to not map it out? I might be using some wrong terminology
That's right.
here. How were you able to navigate through the whole kind of system in terms of diagnosis? Is it autism that came in first, or is it the the ADHD first?
From what I recall, the autism, ADHD, and sensory stuff were almost simultaneously, it was a package deal, if you will.
Like you have no choice.
Yeah. The PDA thing came later. Basically, we just kept going back and saying, look, something's up. He's incredibly anxious. He's not leaving the house. He's not coping with school. There's some serious stuff going on here, and the techniques that we are trying to use to help him aren't working. That we need help. Basically, we were stuck. We didn't know what was going on.
Is he homeschooled now, or?
He is. He did not cope with school. Massive demands in the education system, right from the whole idea of going to school through to being there all day and sitting and doing work and stuff. And it's just, he reached burnout. Probably the end of year 4, we got a little bit into year 5, and I'd been picking him up after an hour or so each day anyway for a while. And after Anzac Day, they had a school assembly, and he wanted to go, but he kind of knew that he didn't cope well with it, and it made him anxious, but he still wanted to go because he didn't want to miss out, and he didn't want to be the different kid, and blah, blah. And so he ended up in quite a loop of dysregulation. And when I went and picked him up, I saw this kid who was just not coping. And I, made the call. It just wasn't worth it. It was damaging his mental health, and it wasn't worth him trying to push himself to do that. So then we spent 8 months, I think it was, trying to do the homeschool applications.
8 months, okay.
Yeah, about that. Yeah. And
that's not the ORS funding, right?
No, he didn't qualify for ORS. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. What I've found, and it may just be that we didn't get the right information or quite what, but he didn't have a learning disability traditionally, in terms of dyslexia or dyscalculia or whatever. He can toilet himself. He doesn't have any immediate medical life-threatening issues. He is a kid who is incredibly anxious, where those demands of being in school and doing all those sorts of things are hard on him. He does have sensory sensitivities. The sound and the light and all that sort of stuff is overwhelming. So in reality, he needed one-on-one support, and he needed to be able to exit the classroom and regroup. But he didn't meet the criteria for any of the ORS stuff, and he barely met criteria for teacher aid hours.
When I was applying for the ORS funding now, I'm kind of like, what you call that when you're ranting? No,
Right.
I'm not ranting. No, when we were applying for ORS funding, we were denied like 2-3 times, because what happened is we submit the form, they will review the form, and then they will deny, and then you will have a chance to fight for it. Like, why do you think our blah 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 is not okay? And then we responded, and then denied again, and then come to a point that from the ministry visited the school just to check, like, why to check every line that we have said that, and some of the lines there are not like, we never said this one, why is it there, kind of like that. So it's really like it took us more than a year or 2 years almost. So it's so hard to do that. I even ended up requesting an OIA from the Ministry of Ed. How do they do the review and all those stuff?
Okay.
Usually they will just give you like, we do this, blah, blah, blah. We have experts looking. Like, sure.
Yeah.
Kind of like now you're hesitate or not, you're doubting the system.
Expert in something, but not an expert in your kid.
Yeah. How can you reach out to a fair conclusion of your review when you haven't even met the child?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They decline us, but they never went to see the child.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that I found really hard in all of those processes is that you've got to spend a lot of time describing limitations of your kid. You know, you
You
can't
focus on the negative.
yeah, you've got to create this, you know, we were told time and time again, you know, make sure you highlight all the limitations. And it's like, man, you know, this kid's got so many strengths. Why are we not focusing on how to support those rather than focusing on the deficit that, you know, deficit quotation marks, that they have? You know, they have a diagnosis of autism. We know they need support. Let's focus on where their strengths are and how we better support those, you know, and acknowledge the challenges and wrap stuff around that, but don't be in a situation where you've just got to make this kid look like they're broken.
And for the parent, it sounded to me like you're rubbing more salt on wound.
Yeah.
Kind of, really.
Yeah.
And one of the, it's funny because one of the responses that they gave to me is like, we're doing a strength-based approach. Like, the more you say the strengths, and the more they will be declined because they know how to do it. Oh, so they will survive the jungle.
Yeah, they're fine. You've got look at all the strengths you've listed. Yeah.
Going back to the PDA, if someone would potentially have a PDA, I think I asked you the traits about the PDA. What do you usually do when it comes to like you're experiencing a PDA, or your son is now kind of like manifesting the PDA?
It's interesting because I'm not that familiar with. We've lived the PDA path. We haven't lived the non-PDA path, if you know what I mean. So being able to sort of say, you know, this is PDA and this isn't is really, really challenging. But I think the things that we noticed quite strongly was that he did have a high level of anxiety. He had incredibly strong reactions to some things. I think the most time I've spent sitting in a car waiting for him to decide on his terms that he will leave the car was about 3 hours. I guess extreme responses to otherwise mundane expectations.
Like the normal thing that they should be doing, going out of the car.
Yeah. And fixation on a particular thing, to the point where he will become hyperfixated on something, and it will last for hours. You know, not a case of I want that particular ice cream. You can't have it because we don't have it. Oh, okay, that's cool. We don't have it. I've had 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours of I need that ice cream. I need that ice cream, and it will wind up into him being quite dysregulated. And really, the only out in that situation is to get the ice cream. Now, a lot of parents will frown upon that, but the way I see it is, it's not a kid being naughty and throwing I want, because those sorts of things on a everyday example and typical kid, if you will, neurotypical kid, they'll move on.
Right.
Whereas in this situation, I like to use the word tenacity. I mean, tenacity is more about a conscious choice, but it's a loop that he can't get out of. So I guess it's extreme responses to what you'd think are everyday, normal demands. The doing the teeth thing, the brushing the hair thing, getting dressed. As I said earlier, sort of having those reasons why they can't do something. Yeah.
For me, in terms of like the routine, I know if there's a routine for an autistic person, usually they kind of like do that routine time and time again. And if you suddenly change that routine. That's where the meltdown will come in. But for you, it's totally different world.
Absolutely different. Somebody used the term the other day, predictable unpredictability. Routine is good until it's not. And it is a very hard road to walk. And this is where I think the demand avoidance stuff comes in. You can set an alarm to say, I don't know, get ready for bed. A nice routine, X o'clock, alarm goes off, get ready for bed. PDA child might go, yep, I'm cool with that, get ready for bed, my alarm's gone off, I need to do it, there's my routine. That's fine. Until it becomes perceived as a demand that they have no autonomy over. And then the routine becomes something else and they want to change it. So we had lots of engagement with the school about putting in place measures, iPad use, a chance to go and run outside, chance to do X, Y, and Z, and they all worked really well for about a week. And then what was novelty became a demand.
Right.
And once it became a demand, it took away from his autonomy. Even if he sort of wanted to do it, there was an expectation that, that it would happen this way, and therefore the demand. And so you've just got to keep. It requires some imagination, because you've got to try and keep one step ahead and thinking about at what point are we likely to hit that demand cycle, and how do we then do something different?
What do you usually do in times like that, like the ice cream or even the car, like 3 hours sitting in the car?
Sit and wait. Look, the number of times where plans have had to change, or we've just had to not do something. When it first started, I used to get really, really frustrated and really, really angry, because it's like, come on, man, just get out of the car. Let's go do something. He has a very high level of emotional awareness and empathy, and responds strongly to my emotion. And I've had to learn to just stay calm, and it's hard. Yeah, so if we're in a situation like that and it's like, come on, let's get out of the car, sometimes you just have to wait. Distraction can help in terms of, just talking about something else, trying to change a subject, trying to start talking about something he might be interested in can help. With my lad, he's a sensory seeker, so opportunities to go on the tramp. Let's go jump on the tramp, or we just give him straight lemon juice, which he still sort of likes, and that seems we found out quite early on that it sort of gives a sensory input that supports him. So really strong flavors like that, and on a cape, it's hard to tell the percentages, but sometimes if you can change the subject, and if you can start talking about something quite random and get his interest, then he might be okay to go and do that thing. But sometimes you've just got to sit and wait.
Right.
Yeah.
Just beside your house or
yeah.
working?
Yep. In a car park. Yep. Wherever you happen to be.
So usually if you have plans for the day, like I'm just making up things. So let's say you'll have a dinner tonight outside, just in assumption that he's okay with that.
Yep.
So basically once that PDA got triggered, you'll wait and your booking is gone.
Yeah.
Something like that
Yeah.
will happen, right?
Yeah. You can try. You can try the strategies. You can try. The sensory stuff that sometimes helps. You can, on occasion, bribes will work, as they do with any kid. A lot of information I find is really useful in terms of we're doing this dinner because here are some things, you're in charge. I find that's one of the best things in terms of supporting him in any situation. We went to the dentist a while back, and it's like, right, you're in charge. If you tap out, we leave. And he got through the whole dentist appointment because he knew that at any point in time he had the autonomy to say enough's enough. So it was all on his terms.
It's like he's in control of
Yep.
the decision.
Yep.
How do you find that? I mean, especially being a dad, like, I know we wanted democracy at home, but there needs to be someone in authority. I mean, otherwise everyone will just be doing their thing. They need to go to the toilet. They need to take a bath, take a shower, toothbrush. If you're not gonna be in authority, probably everyone will sleep like 1 a.m. just playing the tablet, you know?
This is a common theme amongst the dads groups that I'm engaged, and part of. There's that societal expectation that, and I think it's a leftover expectation. I think it's changing a lot, but that idea that dads are disciplinarians, so to speak, or they set clear boundaries. And I've had lots of friends that their male friends have said, "I'll just send them around to me. I'll sort them out." Sometimes I'm tempted just to send, and then go around and help them fix the drywall afterwards. Getting back to your question though, it's hard. You've just got to let go. My son's 10. He goes to bed after me. I tried to get him into bed. It took away his autonomy, and every night was a significant fight. He was exhausted. I was exhausted. He didn't go to bed. Say I wanted to put him to bed at 8. If I said, "Come on, it's bedtime, turn everything off, let's go," we'd have the usual sort of avoidance techniques, and then he'd get increasingly anxious, dysregulated, and we'd spend 2 or 3 hours fighting, and then I'd have to spend some time helping him regulate again, and it would be really, really late, and it was destroying me. I just changed the approach. I said, "Look, I've got work in the morning. I need to be up at 6. I have to go to sleep. You're in the next room. You're welcome to come and crawl into bed with me and watch your tablet. You know where everything is. If you need me, wake me up, but I need to sleep. So good night." And he'll go to bed somewhere between, depending on his sleep cycle and where he's at, somewhere between 11:30 and maybe 4:00 in the morning.
4.
Yep. If he's having a bit of insomnia and stuff.
And give him melatonin?
We did, and then that became a demand. He didn't like it. It made him sleepy, and it took away his
Tablet time.
Yeah, well, it took away his autonomy. It's making me drowsy, and I don't like it. And so he was on other meds as well, and ended up just refusing the meds. So I've had lots of conversations, particularly with dads, around managing their own expectations of their role as a dad, and shifting their thoughts to. And I think this comes back to the earlier point that they don't see hierarchy, right? You are a person who happens to live in the house as well. I wouldn't, if I was flatting with somebody, I wouldn't say, "Right, come on, it's bedtime now." You don't say that to another adult. And these kids are like, "Well, you can go to bed anytime you want. Why can't I?" Some people have success. Some people have a routine and it works for their kids, and nothing is universal. In my situation, I tried the routine thing and it just didn't work. And so we've got a situation now that, it could never work if he was at school.
Because of the strict...
Yeah. But, he was in significant burnout, and it's taken about 18 months for him to start to recover and start to be curious about things and start to be, to want to do stuff. But he's thriving so much more than when he was in school and when we tried to force him to go to bed or do anything.
What are his interests?
Oh, he's a YouTuber, or at least, well, not really, but he will be apparently. He spends a lot of. I don't stop screen time either. I have two rules in my house. One is, you don't hit the dogs, basically, and the other one is you don't threaten people online in terms of your friends and stuff. And that's kind of it. The rest of the time, it is a dialogue about things rather than a hard rule. A dialogue around doing teeth, because when you're lying next to me or when I'm hanging out with you and your breath doesn't smell too good, I don't really enjoy that. So it would be nice, if you could do your teeth so that I don't have to put up with that. And it becomes a choice for him. And it becomes a thing where he understands that it's something that I don't really like, and I'm not making him do his teeth, but,
Kind of, what are the end result, like outcome?
Yeah. So a lot of the interaction is equivalent to what you would have if you were talking to another adult. And it is a different way of being a dad to what
To what the conventional dads
the
say.
conventional, being a dad. And it takes a lot of getting used to. And in the dad groups in particular, there's been a lot of feedback around it's really nice to be in a place where other dads just accept that this is, you can't just go, put your foot down, so to speak, because it just doesn't work.
Are all the dads in the group, the PDA group, which I just also joined, are they all have kids with PDA?
Yes. Yep.
Right.
A couple of the dads also have PDA, which makes their world quite interesting.
Now I'm curious.
Because there's lots of, as an adult, right, there's lots of demands. There's demands everywhere, paying bills, doing everything like that.
Work if you have a boss.
Yeah, absolutely. The need to, prepare food for your kid because you're a parent and you've got to actually look after your kid. So all those things are demands that these dads are trying to support their kids to work through, but also need to work through themselves. And, they're amazing for being able to do that. But yeah, there's some really it's just really nice to have a place where guys can just kind of go, man, I'm struggling.
You just, what do you call that? Vent out.
Vent, yeah, and there's just everyone wraps around them. We're all living the same journey, slightly different, different parts and different stages and whatnot, but we're all finding the similar challenges.
Yeah, I spoke to one parent before. I was explaining, like, we're in the same boat. Someone might just be cleaning the floor to make sure everyone is not gonna sleep on the floor. Someone could probably navigating the wheel. Someone probably fixing the set. But at the end of the day, we're all here on the same boat, and kind of like it's easier to relate and easier to understand. And if someone says, "My child is this and that," I know that because my experience is kind of the same. But yeah. And sometimes it's interesting to hear strategies that from other parents when you apply it, it works.
Yeah, I think the two big things for PDA is low demand parenting. Once you get the hang of it, once you're comfortable with that's what your child needs and it's the best way to support your child, it's okay. But it's still really hard interacting with other parents who don't understand the needs of your kid. You're just like, well, we can't do this because of X, and they're like, well, just tell them to do it, or her to do it. So there's that, and there's sort of declarative language, which is a shift. Take a more curious approach. There's a couple of short blogs on the website that look at that, but there's also plenty of material.
Your website?
Yeah, there's also plenty of web stuff with Pandas, the PDA the UK PDA Society, PDA North America, PDA Space. There's lots of places to get resources on it, but essentially it's being quite clear about the communication, the rationale, and sort of making things more inviting rather than telling.
Is it a different way of, I don't know, asking to do a chore?
Yeah. One of the most powerful shifts I've found is a shift from can you to would you. So can you do this? Would you mind doing this? Or would you be able to do this? And it goes from, oh, can I? I don't know. Can I? To would you do this? Yeah. All right. I would. Right. So really subtle shifts, but they actually have quite a big. They're quite different in terms of the pressure you're putting on the kid and how you're how it's perceived. So that's. I think those are the two biggest things I've come across in terms of supporting a child with PDA.
Do you give them the reason why they have to do it? I know the toothbrushing. You mentioned you're sitting beside me, and is it a mandatory thing? Or it depends on what the situation.
It's very much, pick your moments really. What I have noticed more recently is my boy will elect to have a shower and do his teeth, in which case, whether it's 10 o'clock at night and he suddenly says, I want to shower and do my teeth, if the opportunity arises and he wants to do it, then you do it. Whereas if I said, look, go and get in the shower and do your teeth, he would, that takes away his autonomy, and he would start to be like, oh, just a minute, I'll do it in a minute, oh, I've got this thing to go. And then the more pressure you put on, the more sorts of things like, oh, I can't, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the differences, I think, with my other kids who, would say, no, I'm not doing that, is the look in his eyes. Like there is a genuine look, distressed look. It's almost like it's causing him pain and discomfort. It's not just a case of, no, I'm not doing it. There's a genuine fear or anxiety or, panic in some situations. And, I think as someone who is supporting him, I think it's on me to back away and let him re-regulate, really.
How is his ADHD? Is he on medication?
He was. We tried Ritalin for a while. He lost a lot of weight, and we've tried some other meds. Look, I'm not against using meds. They just didn't work out for him. We tried CBD oil and all sorts of stuff, fish oil, the works. We had some good responses from it.
Fish oil?
Well, fish oil and some of the anxiety meds and those sorts of things. But we soon came up against that, it's med time. There's a demand to take his meds. He may choose to take them when he's older, if he finds, if he wants to try them again.
So right now there's no
meds. No.
Because of that autonomy, losing autonomy.
Yep.
How about his gut microbiome? Are you doing that, like probiotics?
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard a lot of different stuff. And, there's some research that supports it and those sorts of things. Again, it's, you can't hold a 10-year-old down and force meds down their throat, A, they're strong, and B, it just undermines the trust, right? You just can't do it. Occasionally, if he finds something that he really likes, he'll try it for a while. But then, again, it becomes a demand, which is where I think, that predictably unpredictable,
right.
We know it's going to stop. We know whatever we try is going to stop eventually because it becomes a demand, an expectation.
Do you go out usually?
What's out?
Dine outside or
what's outside?
Wrong question.
Do I get
I mean, do you get a chance to go out with your son?
sometimes? We went to a bushwalk and to the park the other week, which was awesome. It was really, really fun. Spent a lot of time spinning around on one of the big sort of contraptions at the park. It was an interesting dynamic when it came time to leave, because the demand to leave was a challenge. So we were there one night for 5 hours until it was dark, and his mother and sister came along and helped persuade him to go home. So it is always a challenge. It's a challenge to get him out. It's a challenge to get him home. Change is not his friend, but also. He's, as I said, he's a sensory seeker. So being able to swing and spin, and I've got chin-up bars throughout the house. I've got sensory swings in a couple of places, trampoline. I want to set up more stuff, but I have a slight theory that there's a bit of price gouging when it comes to sensory supports.
That's my theory too. Like they're so expensive.
Yeah,
and you'll find something similar. From like the head, what you call that, the
noise cancelling.
Noise cancelling.
Yeah.
Find something similar that the tradies are using.
Yeah.
That's similar, but
it's $100 as opposed to $200 odd. So I've seen some there's some amazing stuff, and I've always wanted to set up a sensory library. I was looking a little off topic for this, but never mind. Partly because you don't know whether it's going to work, right? You spend $300 on a sensory toy, it's not a toy, sensory support.
Support.
Some of them are cool toys, but they're not a toy. They're a tool. Weighted blankets, for example, ridiculously expensive. I don't know whether it will work, because sometimes, weight is good and sometimes it's not, and I just don't know. And $300 is a lot of money, so haven't got one. Noise cancelling headphones, again, it's a lot of money. So I would love to be able to have a library where you can, pay a deposit and borrow some stuff and try it, and then, return it. And even if it costs you $15 or $20, it's, that'd be awesome to set up. But we're all parents and we're all time poor.
Right. And also, I remember when one of my friends, actually my boss, lent me a sensory blanket.
Oh, yep.
Just to test it out, because she knows it costs a lot of money.
Yep.
So we tried it. It didn't work. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. And you can always on-sell things, but
you won't be able to sell it the same way that you bought it. Right?
Exactly.
They will say, like, you've used it. No, it's just once. You still use it, so half the price.
Yeah. And so I think the opportunity to try some of those sensory tools and supports is it's not as good as it should be.
You don't have something like that here, like
I've not found something like that.
Anywhere in New Zealand.
Yeah, I've not found it. Look, it might exist. If anyone does know if it exists,
please.
Yeah. let us know. We'll definitely support it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
When it comes to the diagnosis, so you mentioned it came for you're in camps, right?
We've been through.
Is it
the child?
GP? You started from the GP to that direction?
Yeah. It was through the GP, referral through to child development services. Yeah. They do their best with what they've got, but they're all massively under-resourced, as we know. And we've had, I've lost count of the number of plans we've had. You get passed on to a new organisation or support group, and you get a new plan that talks about the what is it, the that the sort of bow wave of, where they're getting more and more dysregulated, and then they calm down again, and lots of plans around that, and safety plans and stuff. And after your first one or two, you kind of go, look, I appreciate your time, but no thank you.
No, thank you.
Yeah. So it was a journey.
So do you do like every time the meltdown comes in, what do you usually do in terms of you've taken the autonomy, now the meltdown has come in? Do you leave him by himself to regulate?
It depends on the situation. Like I'll step in if it's endangering himself, the dogs, or someone else. I've not had to repair that many things in the house, to be fair, which is a bit of a win. The doors have all got some dents in them and things like that, but fortunately I own my own house.
That's good.
Yeah.
Even if you destroy it, kind of.
Yeah.
Accidentally, not destroy.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. There's dents and holes behind most of the doors where the door handle's gone through the wall that I haven't, I fixed some of them and then I've just kind of gone, nah, I'll fix it later. What do I do when... I just spend a lot of energy trying to keep calm. I guess for me, and a lot of people get upset with, well, some people get upset with this analogy. So, I apologize to anybody who does get upset. But for me personally, this analogy works for me. I spent a lot of time growing up working with in animal rescue things, and approaching or dealing with a stressed, anxious, frightened dog has a lot of similarity to helping my boy, right? When you see that they're starting to get anxious, the worst thing you can do is go in there and start asking questions and pushing and pushing and pushing, and you've just got to in the same way that you approach an anxious dog, you do it calm, you don't make eye contact, you get down to their level, you do all those sorts of things that reduce the anxiety. For me, that analogy is quite helpful, and I guess the other thing that I sort of that worked for me in terms of understanding what I needed to do with him was thinking about a couple of cases where I used to work at an SPCA and we had some wild cats in, and they would find safety, and they would find safety any way they could. And if it was through you, it was through you. But they would end up under something or up on top of something where they were safe. And my boy would do the same thing. If you pushed him and you weren't calm and you didn't support that, you would end up with a child who would go through you or around, they would get somewhere safe. They would do something to make sure that they felt okay. And it was thinking around, how do you work in an environment where you've got an animal that you can't... My son's not an animal. This is not the comparison I'm drawing. But nor can you communicate with him at that point. You can't have a conversation when he's dysregulated. The only thing you can do is bring a calm emotion to it. You can't yell at him. You can't. You can try and restrain him, but I can't do that anymore. He's frighteningly strong, and so for me, the only thing I can do is be calm, make sure he's not going to damage himself, make sure that I'm as safe as I can be, and just be there and try and bring as much calm energy into that room as possible. And I find it really tiring,
This is your limit. They have, the glass thing that they're half full, and then now they're full now. Sometimes parents are like that. How do you manage yourself?
Coffee.
Pretty much. Does that increase the anxiety more?
How do I manage? I don't know, to be fair.
Every day you're surviving.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I'm very lucky to be able to work from home. I've got 2 older daughters who sort of look after him a couple of 3 days a week, which allows me to, at the moment, and only just recently, get sort of half a day out away from home to try and focus on work. And I'm got flexible hours, so I can I can carry on working in the evening. So I've been very lucky that way. How do I look after myself? I get up before him in the morning. I have my breakfast, I have coffee, I do some stretching, and I just sit quietly. So I find that really, really useful. I'm looking forward to summer to try and be able to get out for a walk. Sometimes I will just go to the supermarket to buy something I don't need, just so that I can get out of the house. I think the biggest stretch I realised it was about 2 weeks, and I thought to myself, I've not left the house at all because I've been looking after him. So I said, look, I'm going to go buy some chips for us, and I went to the supermarket, and that was my break.
Do you bring him with you?
No.
Okay.
No. He's got older siblings at home, but he's also old enough and
To look after him.
Yeah. He's got an iPad and he can message me or call me on Messenger if he needs anything. So I've got no concerns about leaving him for a short time. Yeah, and the dads groups catch ups they help fill the bucket a bit, but one foot in front of the other, minute by minute, really. I try not to think about it. It is a slog, and
It became your routine. And
yeah.
This is your normal.
Yeah, very much a frog in a pot sort of thing, right? You just, some other people might look in and go, the water's boiling. You're like, oh, is it? But it's not. I mean, it's not all bad, right? Like I have some great times. My son and I play Fortnite together, Minecraft. We play. We have some great laughs. So it's not. Yes, it's hard, and I can't just. I was quite surprised I made it into this, which is awesome. But I can't plan things. I've got friends that do a board game night and can't do those sorts of things. So that there is a sense of loneliness, which is why I started the online communities for dads, because it's about the only way they can connect, or we can connect. And just a friend of mine many years ago talked to me about micro meditation. So I do a lot of that. He did a 10-day retreat. Silent retreat, which I don't know, sounds appealing, but then when I hear stories of what he did in terms of 8 hours of sitting still, meditating and not moving, I think, nah. But he talked to me about sort of, micro meditation, taking 30 seconds here, a minute there, just to try and clear the mind and reground yourself, really. So I do a lot of that, a lot of just little bits of regrouping, if you will.
Right. I heard someone says like you only sometimes because of the time that we have right now, like we're busy going to work or looking after our kids, they say sometimes you don't have time to meditate. And he said, I forgot his name, you only need one conscious deep breath sometimes.
Yep.
Because you don't have time, so now you're conscious and now you can.
Yeah, micro stuff, and it's particularly important, I think, when you recognise that you're holding yourself tense. Your jaw, your hands, your shoulders, and when you take 10 seconds to just stop and think about how you're holding your body, you very quickly realise that actually I've been tense for hours and I haven't thought, so just surviving through just grabbing any moment I can to try and regroup and find something that's positive, really.
So how is the group? Is it New Zealand only group? The
No, it's global.
global.
Yep, there's about 380 odd members, so it's still very small, and it's a chance, and I hope, I haven't asked, but I hope there's some guys in there that have sort of found somebody in the group that they can talk to. You don't have to talk to the whole group. You can message things, you can post anonymously, you can do all that sort of stuff. It's I've never seen a situation in the group in the last sort of 18 months where there was any real disagreement. Everybody wraps around. It's been really cool. It's been an amazing thing to be part of. Yeah.
And sometimes it's just talking to you like this one, like venting out. We
Yeah.
were talking about venting out a while ago. Like, just even if you're not going to, because your challenge is different from my challenge, just kind of thing. You're not solving my problem. I cannot solve your problem.
Yeah.
I don't know how to handle that. But even just by talking to one another and venting out, probably you have an idea on how to solve it. If not, that's okay as well, because you.
Yeah, absolutely. And people will share a resource. They'll say, "Hey, someone showed me this. Might work for you, it might not." And you read it and you go, "Actually, there's a couple of good bits in that I might try." Or someone will say, "Hey, look, I used this phrase with my kid and it worked really well." The one I heard the other night when I was in a Zoom call with some PDA parents was the use of Alexa. They tried to get their kid to.
Is that the AI?
Yeah,
Alexa?
I think it's the Android or Microsoft version of Siri, and so they tried to get their child to put down the tablet and stuff and get ready for bed at whatever time, and it wasn't particularly successful. So they set an alarm through Alexa, and Alexa pipes up and goes, "It's bedtime now," and the kid's like, "Oh, okay, Alexa said it's bedtime." It's not this. It's not this person who is
Demanding.
demanding or trying to perceive. It's just it's my my AI friend who's reminded me.
It's not a human being.
Yeah, so there's lots of tips and tricks like that, and it doesn't always work.
Yeah.
But
I'll write it down. Go ahead.
yeah, but it's just a chance to share stuff, and just have a community of people that get it.
Without naming names, what's the most challenging situation that you've seen so far in the group?
Well, it is a PDA group. It's for dads of kids with PDA. I think the biggest challenge I've seen is in situations where parents don't have the flexibility to homeschool, and their kid still needs to go to school, but they're not coping, and the parents acknowledge they're not coping, but there's no. They're kind of trapped into this. That's the hardest situation I think I've seen.
And you can see the eyes of the kids. They wanted to go to school,
Yep.
but it's not that they don't want, but something is not.
Yes, it's the school can't is a term that gets used a lot.
Yes, and when we were, I remember we were applying for ORS funding. Again, let's go back to that topic. We were in a discussion with the ministry, and I think that he was the manager of the manager, kind of like it got escalated, right? And then I was actually about to go to the the ombudsman,
Oh yeah, yep.
just to like, hey, they're not doing their job, kind of like that. Like, I hope I don't go there because that path is something so kind of
Daunting.
exhausting. And I remember the teacher said that if he's not gonna get an ORS funding, we don't have a choice, but he can't go to school
Yeah.
because even if they want
Yep.
to get him, they wanted him at school, but no one's going to be able to
Yep.
support him.
Yep.
Safety,
Yep.
safety of his safety, other kids said he was pulling hair. So basically, when he's happy, it doesn't matter. If he's happy, he's sad. I'm not trying to be like arrogant or something, but good luck to the child who will be. Yeah. So they said like if he's not gonna get a funding, then we're sorry, we
Oh.
can't support it.
Yes. Schools are in in a hard place. And the school that my son went to, they tried. We had lots of meetings. We had lots of plans. I do find that schools, and I don't think it's their fault, but they are a bit risk averse, right? Because they get held accountable for various things. For example, we tried to have my son likes to swing. It's a big sensory thing for him. So we tried to get a swing put in. And the school was like, oh, we'll have issues with other kids wanting to use the swing and blah, 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 blah. It's like, the kindy managed it. The playgrounds manage it. Why other schools manage it? Why can't you manage it? And he used to try and, he can climb not so much these days, but he used to be able to climb a blank wall, right? He could climb anything. It was amazing. But he'd climb up onto like big shipping containers and things like that to give himself a place where he could see what was coming, where people couldn't reach him and where he felt safe. And we had lots of conversations about whether, the school would allow him to do that because the other kids would see it and they would want to try and do it. And, there were lots of, we can support, but there's limitations, or we can support, but there's excuses. By and large, the best thing, the most of the support actually came from the kids. The kids were amazing. Like just a whole generation of kids with unbelievable level of empathy and awareness. I went and talked to the kids because I was trying to get my son to use noise cancelling headphones to see if that helped. And obviously he didn't want to be the odd kid out. So the teacher talked to the kids, and the kids, I took in a dozen pairs of, the cheap Mitre 10 headphone, just the red ones used for mowing the lawns. Took those in and said, look, if any kids want them, that's fine. And the teacher talked to the kids and said, this is the situation. They're here if anyone wants them. And I'll never forget, one of the kids said, look, I don't like wearing earmuffs, but if it helps him feel okay, I'll do it. And so I was blown away. I mean, these kids they were about 7. And just amazing levels of empathy. And I think if we could harness that in some way right across our education system and beyond,
politicians
and beyond the education system, it'd be we'd have a wonderful, wonderful place. It'd be amazing.
Right. That's so much. Sorry, I'm just conscious about the time.
That's good.
Misconception of PDA. Have you heard any misconception? Like, he's just a lazy boy.
Lots of people don't believe in it.
Is it because we don't have like a formal?
Yeah, it's partly that. It's partly a confusion with opposition defiant disorder. I don't entirely understand the difference. There's some schools of thought that they're very different. There's schools of thought that they're closely aligned. There's different definitions. ODD's recognised, PDA's not. So there's all that sort of stuff going on. I think the biggest thing is it's just not known about. Autism there's a lot of awareness, obviously, which is great. There is a lot of stereotype around, what autism looks like.
Yeah, like, you don't look autistic. What?
Yeah.
Do we have a model?
Yeah, there's that meme. Can you just do an autism for me? So there's all of that, and a lot of kids with PDA are very articulate. My son can dish out sarcasm and stuff really, really well. He's got an exceptional vocabulary. He's taught himself to read and maths. And, a lot of them are really bright kids, but that doesn't mean they're not facing significant challenges. And because they seem so articulate and not autistic, if you will, which is frustrating, right? Because if a kid is being naughty, there's a reason. Kids are generally good if they can be. if a kid's acting out, if you will, to use that term, something's going on with them. They're expressing an emotion somehow. Yeah, it'd be nice if we focus more on how kids are behaving and what's causing it, rather than you are autistic or you're not autistic, or you've got PDA or you've not got PDA. I mean, recognize those things, because it gives you some clues and it gives you a place to start. And it, I think my boy's kind of embraced his diagnosis and his.
So he knows his.
Yeah. I'm completely open with him. So he recognises it and he understands it to a certain extent. He gets it. We've talked a lot about it. But even if there wasn't a diagnosis, the needs won't change. So I think we'd certainly need a lot more education, but I think we also need a lot more. We need a different approach that sort of. And schools try, like they're up against the wall, right? But there's so many great teachers who try and work with each and every individual kid, and it's fantastic.
How do you do the IEP now? You don't have IEP.
No, we unschool basically, and I could do an entire podcast on the anxiety that caused me.
Right, we can do another one.
Yeah,
at some point.
With the anxiety that comes around demands, homeschooling in the traditional sense wasn't going to work. He's not going to sit down and do a worksheet. Anytime I say, hey, let's do some learning or something, I get shut down really fast. But he's still learning a heck of a lot. He is a faster reader than I am, most of the time. So yeah, there's no IEP. It's very much him leading his. Yeah. So if he says, look, I'll come across a YouTube video and be like, hey, check this out. This is really cool. Sometimes he'll engage, sometimes he won't. But he'll look at stuff also and say, hey, look, did you know this? Did you know that? And I've learned a heck of a lot from him. Yeah, no formal learning plan, which I keep having. I certainly had some anxiety at the start, and I keep having those panic attacks about, oh my goodness, he's not learned in ages, which is not true. He's learning every single day. But yeah,
it's not the standard.
Yeah, again, it's a break with that societal expectation. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It doesn't mean it's not effective. It just means that it's not what is typical.
Right. So what is PDA for you?
PDA for me is an individual, in my case, a 10-year-old kid, a small child who is struggling with the demands of the world, with his own demands, and is highly strung. He's an amazing kid. He's funny, he's quick-witted, he's articulate. He's got so many amazing qualities. And he would or will excel when he finds his thing and can do it his way. And my job in all of this is to support him to find that thing and to achieve it in a way that, he's comfortable with. It is hard. Supporting someone with PDA is incredibly hard. But I think it's easier than being in his head with some of the looks that he gives me sometimes.
What is autism for you? Is it a hard question? I'm giving you hard
It is.
questions.
That is a hard question. It's a uniqueness, I think. I'm not going to say, you read things around it's a superpower and all of that sort of stuff, and others go, well, it's a disability because you can't do X, Y, and Z. You might not be able to do X, Y, and Z, but you can do A and B. I'm not particularly good at sports, but I'm quite good at other stuff. For me, autism is an individual who has a set of potentially non-classical skills and challenges.
Right.
Take the label away, they're the same person.
Human being, right?
Yep, they're a human being. We're all human beings. I kind of think my visual picture of autism and PDA and ADHD and all of that sort of stuff. I've always been fascinated by topographical maps and things like that, particularly ocean floor maps, where they sort of have the different colours for the different heights. And so I've always sort of thought of it as, a big grid of marine floor, and people with autism or PDA, their map is absolutely unique, but they tend to have some common sort of hills and dips and different places, and that we're all different heights, but we kind of, or we've all got, as humans, got different sets of skills, but we tend to be relatively good at this and not so good at that, and compared to whatever. So that's kind of, there's a rich, unique tapestry of an infinite combination of, topography, and there tends to be some similarities across those with autism as opposed to those, neurotypical, but they're never the same.
Right.
So that's kind of, rather than that traditional continuum of, high functioning, which is, an interesting term in itself, versus not high functioning. So I think for me, getting back to your question, sorry, rambling, is it's a label put against a wide variety of characteristics that have some commonality. I think, it's, takiwatanga in my own time and space. Yeah.
Great. Where can they find you, and what do you usually do with the AUT support?
AUT support, not to be confused with a support system for Auckland University Technology. It's relatively new. It's very, very small. Basically, I did a coaching course with Coach Masters Academy a year or two ago, and I've sort of been sitting there thinking, I wish I'd had somebody to support me to work through the things that I wanted to work through. Not solve my problems, but just help me talk it through. And the coaching stuff was really good for helping me think about how to do that and get some techniques. And so I started looking for a coach, and they are expensive, and I've talked to a lot of friends in the autism community who, parents had to give up work to do the full-time care. So basically, the AUT support stuff, I run two arms to it. One is an online gaming mentoring thing, which does have a cost to it, which is essentially an opportunity for me to work with an individual or a group of kids, and just play the game on the Xbox or whatever that they like to play, and just listen to them, talk to them, try and build social skills, build collaboration skills, build bit of determination and perseverance and self-management, those sorts of things. The other side is coaching parents, not in this is how you support your autistic child or whatever, but coaching in the sense of them working through things they want to overcome or address in order to achieve a better life, basically. So it's not this is how you do it. It's have you thought about what is it that you're looking to achieve? And that's done on a koha basis. Right. So basically, you pay what you can or what you think you value you got out of it. Because having a standard coach fee is I think largely unachievable for many people. Yeah. So it's on the side at the moment. It's it's very, very new. I don't know whether it'll go anywhere, but I figure, I might be able to have one person and that's cool.
Similarly, that's why I set this up as well. If I can give one parent a strategy, even just one strategy that will make a big difference in there, that I'm a successful kind of podcaster or something like that.
No, it's awesome.
Even just one parent.
Based on my conversations with particularly with dads and parents and stuff, is you're doing well. You're doing good. You're not alone. Yeah, and I think for anybody who is working with parents and kids, neurodivergent kids, just listen. Just let people be heard, and don't assume that what worked for the last kid will work for their kid. I think, it's just, this is quite the journey, no matter what you're dealing with, and you're not alone. So listen to podcasts, look at websites, join Facebook communities, reach out, and if you know somebody who has an autistic kid, reach in. Just say, hey, look, can I help in some way? 9 times out of 10, you probably won't be able to babysit, but you might be able to run an errand for them.
We're about to run out of time. Thank you. I really appreciate your time. I know you are very, very, very busy, and full-time support to your kid, and a lot of challenges, which is kind of totally understandable if you decline me. I mean, like,
I'd love to do this again. It's awesome.
Yeah, we can do this again sometime. Talk about the anxiety and stuff, probably. I wish we can still extend this, but no, we might get kicked out. All right. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate you.
Cheers.